Hi, so I'm thrilled to be here. My name is Alise Curran. I am a mom, educator, author. I run an Instagram, Alise Curran Writes. It's where you can find me. I wrote a children's book called Nana Will Say Yes. And this is the first of what I'm hoping will be a series, interviewing authors to hear about their process and learn a little bit more about their writing, and hope to share that with the writing community. So I'm here with Alyssa Londoño. So excited. And she has an awesome book, and we're going to just do a little chit chat and see kind of what we learn about her process. So tell me a little bit about yourself, and give us a little taste of what you're doing now.
Sure. So I have been a fourth grade teacher for 11 years. I have twins, they're 3.5. And I'm also a writer. So I have many different things going on. um, and my book came out November 1st. So it's been a couple months now, but very exciting months.
Yeah. And what's the name of your book?
Love is everywhere. And it's a story about finding love in everyday things.
Oh, and what age group is it kind of geared towards?
So I would say it's more for like 2 through 10-year-olds. But I do think that older kids can take something away and appreciate it as well. I think it really just depends on how it's presented to them and how it's approached.
Absolutely. I love that. And how did you kind of get into writing? Like, what led you to write this book?
So I've always wrote in terms of like journaling, and I taught English language arts for fourth grade. We were departmentalized, so I was only teaching English. And one of the big things that we were teaching was how to write a narrative and how to write a story. So a lot of the time I had to do so much of my own writing. And a lot of my writing actually came from being in the classroom. Um, and then my mom actually got sick with pancreatic cancer. And it really just sparked me to really get more involved and to really dive into this one specific manuscript. I had a couple going on at the same time, but once I really saw my mom and how she just had this like joy for life and found love and happiness in all these small things, um, then it really made me like really want to focus on that manuscript. And I was able to actually go with her to chemotherapy and do writing with her while she was a big romance novel reader. So she would read her book and I would write my children's book. And it was just like a nice bonding experience for us. And then I just continued with it and kept going, it's been so much fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really sorry to hear that your mom is sick and all of that, but I'm so glad that it kind of turned into a positive, and like now that you
Yes,
have this product to really see and reflect on and be proud of,
yes,
I think it's
exactly.
fantastic. Yeah, that's really a really heartwarming story
Thank
and
you.
situation. I'm so glad that kind of came into something good from it.
Yes.
Um, and I was just thinking that kind of also leads into my next thought of there. I know it's called Love is Everywhere. What other themes are kind of in the book? Is it really like focused on love? Is it on relationships or friendships, or what's kind of in that story?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it is obviously about love. Like I think I really wanted to get across the point that like love is universal and you can find it in so many different ways. And it doesn't have to be that love between, two people, but it could be a mother and a daughter. It could be family. It could be friendship, because in the book, one of the things that the little girl finds that she sees in love, is like laughing with her best friends. So it does have those other aspects to it, which I think is really nice, because you can look at the love aspect, or you can look at friendship, or you can look at kindness, because really just being kind is showing love too. So, I think it's those things that we sometimes overlook or don't appreciate as much, because I know I don't, especially in our busy lives. We just get caught up and we don't kind of like look at those things, and we don't appreciate them as much as we should. So
Yeah, well, that's fantastic, and I think it's like a totally universal message for kids,
Right.
and the parents reading it is a nice reminder. I always think that when I'm reading with my children, like, what a nice reminder of like you can find, love in anywhere you are, and just messages that come through in the
Right.
books are not always just for the kids, which is nice.
Exactly. That's
That's
so
great.
true.
So when you were publishing this book, and what was your favorite part about kind of making this book become a reality, really writing it and publishing it?
I think the most exciting part for me was actually seeing like the illustrations paired up with the words. Because I have been looking at my words for so long. And I mean, as you know, as an author, like you do one draft and one draft and you get critiques and you get other people looking at, and I just felt like I had been staring at my words for so long that I could probably recite them front and back.
Yeah.
But then when I saw the visuals that like went with it, it really just made it come to life and become like a real
Mhm.
book. I was like, oh my goodness, this is real. Like, so that was really an exciting part for me. And
Yeah,
then when I got to hold the first copy in my hand, that was like,
the best.
this is the book. That was also just amazing.
Absolutely the best, yeah. And how much when you were talking about the illustrations, I know it varies so much with different authors on how much input they had, like, creatively into the illustrations, and, like, what kind of creative direction the book took. How much input did you have? Was it kind of a situation where you were the author, you wrote the words, and then the illustrator kind of took over from there? Did you give an idea of what you'd really like to see? How kinda did that work
Yeah.
for your experience?
So that was really important for me, especially because this book is dedicated to my mom and it really was being my debut book. And I
Mhm,
really wanted to have as much creative input as I possibly could.
mhm,
So I met with the illustrator over um, Zoom multiple times and I kind of made storyboards for each page.
mhm,
And I put images and pictures of kind of just what I envisioned, what I could see when I was writing the words. And he did use a lot of those cues and like you can tell in the pictures like what was on my storyboard and then took it in his own direction. Um, but yeah, I made sure like my mom's favorite flower is roses, and like that's one of the pages, like the smell of fresh cut roses, and I like put roses, the kind she likes. I'm like, this is really important. I also wanted the main character to be based off my daughter.
mhm,
So my daughter, so my husband is Colombian El Salvadorian, and so she has this tan skin with this curly, beautiful hair, and she always has a bow. And I'm like, I just felt like kids could really just relate to her. And I wanted her to be able to like see, not like her exact self, but see someone that was similar to her in books, because I know being a teacher, sometimes you don't always get that the differences and the diversity and all of these things. So that was also something really important to me that I made sure I like emphasized with him. And he did a great job. She's the main character's beautiful. I love her. I'm also biased, but
yeah. No, I've seen the book. She is. And I'm so glad that worked out for you to have so much creative control, because I know, especially like you said, for your debut book, like you really want a hands-on approach. You don't want to just kind of take it and hand it off to someone. You really want to see what is important to you reflected in that. So
yeah,
I'm so glad that that was your experience, which is really nice.
yeah,
Uh, and yeah, it's fantastic also to find an illustrator that kind of sees what your vision is and go from there, which is, it's important. You don't want to just kind of not quite click with someone. And I'm wondering if there was any part of like your publishing process that was either like your least favorite, or there was something surprising about it, or there was, I don't want to say a conflict, but just something that didn't go as smoothly for you, or was it kind of smooth sailing throughout the whole thing?
I think the part that was the hardest was the beginning when people would critique it or look at it. I think I just had a hard time because it was so close to me that I don't think I took criticism the best. But now I think that now throughout the whole process, it's been so much easier. But in the beginning, I'm like, no, I put that word there because, like, and you have these
Yeah.
emotions attached to this book, and especially your first book. And as you know, it's like your baby. You want it to be perfect and you want everyone to love it right away. And of course, like your first draft, your second, your third, it goes through so many revisions.
Mhm.
So that was really hard for me to just get used to people like, you know, creatively judging my work, but
Yeah, absolutely.
it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there and kind of be like, here's my writing. You can look at it and tell me what you think. Um, and especially like my family, they were like kind of the last people I let read it.
Yeah.
Uh, like especially my husband. I'm like, no, 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 you have to wait, you have to wait. And then
Mm.
finally, when it was going to print, I'm like, okay, you can read it because like I just want to make sure it's perfect. So that was really hard. But I
Yeah.
also think on the other side of things, like marketing is really hard as well. You know, making sure you're getting your book out there the best you can. And um, that has also been pretty challenging as well.
Yeah, that's an absolutely challenging. I hear that a lot from, new authors of like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
realize this was so much of not just writing. It's more of a process of like marketing your book and selling your book, and it's a different set
Yeah.
of skills, and
Right.
it's challenging. When you were saying, oh goodness. Oh, when you were saying the critiquing, where did you find critique partners? Did you kind of utilize local groups? Did you find some communities online? Was there anything that was helpful that you found to
Yeah.
get critique partners?
So in the very beginning, I had a couple of friends. I have a couple of friends who are writers. One is a journalist, and I sent it my writing there to begin. And uh, then I joined SCW.
SCBWI, yes.
I
Always an
always
acronym.
mess up the letters. And they had the open writing. So I started going to the open writing, and then I met a couple other authors, and they kind of became like my critique partners. And then I joined a critique group through them, and now I'm in another critique group. I really met people through them because in the beginning, especially, I didn't really know that many people who were writers.
Hmm.
You know, it's kind of like when you're writing, you're by yourself, kind of like you're isolated almost. Like,
Yeah.
so that was also a challenge finding people to read my writing and the right people, because you want to make sure that it's people that are looking for those specific things or to know what to look for. But it was really great once I found people, and people are really willing to just like read your work and give you feedback, and which is amazing because it's the most helpful having other people's eyes look at it. So that was
Absolutely.
that was great.
Yeah, SCBWI is fantastic. They have a really great network, and the local area is really a good resource to tap into as a new author for sure.
Yeah.
Is there any other advice you would give to new authors who are like either just starting out? I know for myself, when I said, "Oh, I wrote and published a children's book," so many friends and family were like, I have an idea for a children's book. I've been thinking about this forever. I'd love to do it. Is
Yeah.
there any advice to those people that are saying that you can give as, having just been through this process?
I think the biggest advice would be to find people you can talk with and work
Mhm.
through things with, because I know that sometimes I'm like, oh, this is weird, or I'll message you, or so,
Yeah.
it's nice to have like a community to fall back on and to be able to talk to others who are doing things like you. Because a lot of people in your house or in your friend circle, they have completely different jobs, and
Uh-huh.
it's nice to be able to talk to people about what you're going through and help and be like, well, what do you do with this? Or people have other connections, and it helps to really like broaden your scope, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I find the same. And I definitely didn't realize that there was such a community online of,
Right.
Instagram specifically, of people that were just like right in that same part and zone. And like you mentioned, so willing to help and be
Right.
there to be like, oh, sure, I'll take a look, or, oh, I'll post that. Like, absolutely. And, it's just much more of a community than I realized. And when you said earlier, writing, you're sitting there by yourself, you really
Mhm.
are. You're kind of in a silo. And once you find out that there's like, oh, wow, this is so relatable, there's so many other people doing this, it really does make it a lot easier if you have a question or anything like that to kind of reach out, which
Yeah.
is,
And so many people are willing to do reviews or read your book. And I think in the beginning I was so scared to like ask people, like,
uh-huh.
would you mind reading my book? Would you mind looking at it? Because you just, as for me, I didn't want to be that person to like annoy people or bother people. But like people are so willing, especially like you said, like the community online is so amazing that just asking and putting yourself out there, which has been something new for me, but
Mhm.
really worth it. And, you know, you get great feedback and you get to meet all these new people, which is so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that also. It's been lovely. I mean, really, it's learned so much. I find like having just done this, just learn so many new things that you weren't expecting and meet so many nice people. And I know just so anyone watching this, you and I are reconnecting for the second time because we
Yeah.
actually went to elementary school together in this small world and kind of reconnected on Instagram and through the author community. And it's been lovely to kind of see this go along with you on this because it's really, a journey that I wasn't sure I'd be taking a couple of years ago. And,
Me
here
neither.
we are. Yeah. So it's been fun.
It's so funny. Yeah. And it was so random and like crazy, but amazing.
I know, small world. So I know you're super busy with your family and, you're doing a lot of author visits and things like that, which is great. And going to visit schools. Are there any projects in the works for you right now? You working on anything new?
So I just joined the 12 for 12 challenge, writing a manuscript a month, just to kind of like challenge myself and see what else I could do. And so I've written new manuscripts so
Yeah.
far. I had a couple before that. So it's exciting. I don't know what will come of them. And, it may just be for fun, but I hope there's more in the works.
Oh, that's fantastic. And if you were to do another one, if one kind of really touches you as you're working on this, do you think you'd traditionally publish? Do you think you'd go the self-publishing route, or you're not really sure? It kind of would have to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that there are pros and cons to both, which is, great in and of itself. So I don't know. I think I'd have to see how I felt about it. Like, I know that there's some things I'm like, okay, I'd be okay with this being traditionally published. And then there's some like, oh no, I think I'd want to like have too much control. I don't know to let
Yeah.
it go.
Yeah, it makes sense. You kind of have to see when you cross that bridge. And
Yeah.
how can people connect with you? Where can they find you online, and where can they get this awesome book and right in time for Valentine's Day? Love's all around. Love's everywhere.
Love ever. So on Instagram, it's author.alondano. And then on Twitter, it's alondano0612. And then on Facebook, it's author Alyssa Londoño. So any of those things. And my website is alondano0612.com.
Awesome. And is your book available, local libraries, bookstores, online? How can they get a hold of that?
Sure. So it is available in local libraries. It's available in Westchester libraries,
Westchester, New York.
um,
Yep.
Westchester, New York. And then it is also available on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Nobles, and through my website directly. So any of those work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we will definitely talk soon. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Oh, thank you for having me on. This is so much fun.
Take care. Yes, it was. Thank you.